Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. My name is Nathan Richards, and this is my show, Reason with Me. Today, we're going to be doing an episode. It's part one of a series titled How to Follow the Money. And in this episode, we're going to be looking at a lot of local news stations, finding out who owns them, and deciding if we should trust them or not. With that being said, let's get right into the research. So the first thing we're looking at is a local news station in Tulsa, Fox 23 News. And the article isn't as important as what's at the bottom of the article, which is right here. You see copyright 2021 Cox Media Group. Cox Media Group is a giant corporation that owns several media stations. If we look at their Wikipedia page, we can scroll down past the radio stations into the television stations and see exactly which television stations they own. As you can see, they own several TV stations in very large cities across the country. And if we scroll back up and we read the first sentence, Cox Media Group Incorporated is an American media conglomerate principally owned by Apollo Global Management. Look over to the right, and you'll see that Apollo Global Management owns 71% of the company. Cox Enterprises only owns 29% of the company. So, who is Apollo Global Management? How many of you have heard about them before? Probably quite a few of you, considering there's been some controversy surrounding one of their CEOs, but we'll get into that in a second. Apollo Global Management, Inc. is a global alternative investment manager firm. It was founded in 1990 by Leon Black, Josh Harris, and Mark Rowan. Apollo is headquartered in New York City with offices across North America, Europe, and Asia. The company's stock is publicly traded on the NYSE under the symbol APO. If you look at the bottom of this section here, it says, in March 2021, Apollo announced that Leon Black had stepped down as CEO and chairman after revelations that he paid Jeffrey Epstein $158 million for, and this should be in quotes, personal tax-related advice over the period from 2012 to 2017. Mark Rowan became CEO after Black stepped down. So let's dig into that a little bit more. We're going to go to the Miami Herald, who actually broke the Jeffrey Epstein story. And if it wasn't for their journalism, Jeffrey Epstein would probably still be free today. Title of the article is Hedge Fund Guru Tied to Jeffrey Epstein Scandal Hit with Lawsuit Over Alleged Hush Money. Okay, so we already know that Leon Black gave Jeffrey Epstein $158 million from the Wikipedia article. This is another story that's come out saying a New York woman has filed a defamation lawsuit against Leon Black, alleging that the hedge fund titan sexually assaulted, harassed, and intimidated her, then paid her hundreds of thousands of dollars in hush money for more than a decade to keep her from going public. Gazelle Geneva, a former model who went on to earn a business degree from Columbia and attended law school, claims that Black, former CEO of Apollo Global Management, was a predator who forced sadistic sexual acts on her without her consent, then demanded she sign an NDA telling her he would destroy her if she ever told anyone about his conduct, according to the suit. Black 69 stepped down as Apollo's chairman and CEO in January amid revelations that he paid sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein more than $150 million for financial advice. And then if we go over to this next article, this is from Bloomberg. And it's titled, Jeffrey Epstein Had a Door into Apollo, His Deep Ties with Leon Black. And I want you to look at the date on this article, published on July 31st, 2019. So when this article was published, Leon Black was still the CEO of Apollo Global Management, and Jeffrey Epstein was still alive. Almost a decade after Jeffrey Epstein was first accused of preying on young women, he still had access to the inner sanctum of Apollo Global Management. Leon Black, Apollo's billionaire chairman, met with the financier from time to time at the company's New York offices, and he allowed Epstein to pitch personal tax strategies to the firm's executives, according to the people familiar with the matter. The executives were puzzled. What services could he possibly provide? Let's scroll down a little bit more because there's more interesting stuff that's more important to focus on. Okay, so it says here, yet his association with Black stretches back, talking about it. Okay, Epstein cultivated a number of prominent Wall Street figures over the years, yet his association with Black stretches back more than 2 decades and ran deeper and longer than even some at Apollo initially believed. For instance, in 2015, Black dispatched Apollo co-founder Mark Rowan, who is now the CEO of Apollo Global Management, to attend a meeting at Epstein's Manhattan mansion with Edmund de Rothschild Group to discuss how the two firms could work more closely, 2 people said. And I'm sure you've heard the name Rothschild before. Ariane de Rothschild and Cynthia Tobiano represented the European banking dynasty at Epstein's home, the people said, though no follow-up meetings or deals ensued. So, a spokeswoman for the Rothschild, I do not know what you are referring to. You know, trying to cover up for the Rothschilds. Of course. I mean, they can't just admit it without suffering. And then if you scroll down a little bit more here, Black's links to Epstein have become a source of fascination and concern to some Apollo employees and investors, including the California Public Employees Retirement System, which has committed more than $5 billion to 11 Apollo funds and is its second largest shareholder. Scroll down a little bit more. Black and Epstein's ties have come under renewed scrutiny after the disgraced financier was arrested July 6th on federal charges that he molested and exploited teenage girls. Scroll down a little bit more. Black isn't alone in continuing a professional relationship with Epstein years after his first conviction, although Epstein's biggest benefactor, Les Wexner, the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret, said he severed ties more than a decade ago. J.P. Morgan Chase & Co. had maintained a relationship with Epstein for years after, while Deutsche Bank AG cut him loose in recent months. Scroll down a little bit more. Epstein and Black have been acquaintances since at least the early 1990s. The relationship deepened as Black became one of the wealthiest and most powerful people in finance. Black is worth $6.5 billion. Scroll down to the bottom here. Epstein was a director of the Leon Black Family Foundation from at least 2001, according to disclosure forms filed with the U.S. government. His name appeared on these forms until 2012. That was an administrative error, spokeswoman for Black said last week. Epstein was asked to resign in 2007, but records weren't kept up to date, she said. How morally deprived do these women have to be to defend these pedophiles and these rapists? It's just insane to me. Black and Epstein were still doing some business in 2015. That year, BV70 LLC, a charity controlled by Black, donated $10 million to Epstein's foundation, Gratitude America. Okay, why are these things important? Well, these things are important, and I'm about to show you in this next tab. Because don't forget, these are the people who own several local news stations. So in this next tab, it's CNN Business. And we look at the top 10 owners of Apollo Global Management, Inc. And as you can see, the top two are Tiger Global Management, LLC, and the Vanguard Group, Incorporated. Tiger Global Management, LLC, owns 10.16% of Apollo Global Management. So let's go to Tiger Global Management's Wikipedia page. There's not much on here, of course, it's whitewashed. But one thing I do want to point out is that if you look at their headquarters on the right-hand side, they're in Solo Building, 57th Street, New York City. And if you look at Apollo Global Management, and you look at their headquarters, they're in the same exact building. So it's not that Tiger Global Management owns the largest share of Apollo Global Management. It's also the fact that they're in the same building. So obviously, these people are freaking talking to each other, getting to know each other, and everything else. But let's go back. Okay, so we're on Apollo Global Management's page now. And we're going to scroll down, all the way to their portfolio investments. And you'll be able to see a lot here. Apollo Global Management owns Cox Media Group, which owns all those local news stations. They also own Apollo Education Group, which is the parent company of University of Phoenix. They own Chuck E. Cheese's. They own Claire's. And I'm just pointing out some of the ones that I think are important that people need to be aware of. And they also own McGraw-Hill Education. So the company that prints and publishes your child's textbooks are owned by these greedy, morally deprived billionaires in New York City. Another one that they own that's not on here, but you could easily Google it, is ADT, the home security company. So essentially, Apollo Global Management owns the local news, which is basically supposed to be adult education. They own McGraw-Hill, which is your children's education. And they own your home security. Now let's take a closer look at Tiger Global Management, the company that owns the majority stock in Apollo Global Management. And I'm on hedgefollow.com. And we're looking at their portfolio. And if you look at their portfolio, the top company they own is JD.com Inc., which is actually the second largest online retailer in China. Go down to number 2, Microsoft. Number 3, Roblox, which is your kids' video games, basically. Number 4 is Sea Limited. It's a data company. And then you have Amazon. Then you have Apollo Global Management down here. And then you have Facebook. And some other notables are Alibaba, Spotify, Zoom, Netflix, MasterCard, and PayPal. And Airbnb. If we look at Roblox's top 10 owners on CNN Business, number 1, Tiger Global Management. If we look at JD.com on CNN Business, number 1, Tiger Global Management. This company that nobody's even really ever heard of. Next, we're going to take a look at another media conglomerate that owns several different local media stations called Nexstar. And we're going to go to their Wikipedia page and look at this right here. Okay. Nexstar Media Group is the largest owner of television stations in the United States, currently owning or operating a total of 197 television stations across the United States, many of which are affiliates of the 4 major U.S. television networks and are located in markets as large as New York City and as small as San Angelo, Texas. It also operates all of the stations owned by affiliated companies. And if we just scroll down here, we can take a look at all the channels they own. Very big channels for very, very big cities. KDVR in Denver, KTLA in Los Angeles, WGN in Chicago. Tons and tons of news stations. Okay. And if we go back to the Apollo Global Management on CNN Business, you'll see their second biggest owner is the Vanguard Group. And let's take a look at Nexstar. On CNN Business, their major stockholder, who owns 8.7% of the stock, is the Vanguard Group. And if we look at their Wikipedia page, really the most important thing is the bottom sentence on this first paragraph. Vanguard is considered one of the big 3 index fund managers that dominate corporate America. Okay. And if we go to Vanguard's own website and look at their high dividend yield index fund, we'll see a lot of the companies that they have large holdings in. Bank of America, $1.1 billion. AT&T, $750 million. Pfizer, $796 million. Okay, you get where this is going? Comcast, $947 million worth of that company. ExxonMobil, Cisco, Verizon, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan and Chase, Johnson & Johnson, right? And look at Johnson & Johnson. It's a big one. $1.5 billion worth of Johnson & Johnson. Then you have some other pharmaceutical giants like Merck & Co., Procter & Gamble, etc. A lot of banks, a lot of media, and a lot of pharmaceuticals. Then you go down here and even a little bit more, you got the defense industry and Raytheon, which they own $471 million worth. You got Walmart, Conoco, the list just goes on and on. And if we take a look at some of these companies, right? So we looked at Nexstar and we saw that Vanguard owns the majority of stakes in that company. Let's look at AT&T on CNN Business. Number one, the Vanguard Group. Let's look at Facebook. Number one, the Vanguard Group. Let's look at Pfizer. Number one, Vanguard Group. Let's look at Google, Alphabet Inc., Google and YouTube. What do you see? Number one, the Vanguard Group. You know, these people try to pass it off like they're benevolent and they're just controlling people's retirement accounts and they're helping the city workers and the police and the hospital workers and all this stuff. But really, we don't really know what is going on behind closed doors other than we know it's nefarious. Only because you can see the direction that this country is headed. And you can see how even in a conservative area like Tulsa, which is the first news station that we looked at, they don't talk from a conservative viewpoint. They still talk from a New York billionaire viewpoint. Why is that? Well, it's because they're owned by billionaires in New York. And if they don't do what they're told and get in line, they're not going to have a job anymore. They might not even have a company anymore because these companies can just pull the plug on them anytime they want. And the same thing works. It works the same way with these big investors. Okay? At any time, the Vanguard Group can pull all of their money out of a company and drive that stock down so low that everyone else is going to start panicking and pulling their money out too. And it's going to leave the company worthless. So basically, what you're looking at is that media, corporations, schools, hospitals, you name it, they are all indebted and owned by billionaires on the East Coast, okay, by the financial institutions. And they really freaking own them, okay? There's a reason why they're all on the same page. There's a reason why they're all pushing the same propaganda. And it's not in your best interest. If you could just look at your own life and look at everyone's life around you and say, is everyone's life here getting better? Or does it seem to be getting worse? Well, what's getting worse? Well, the media is radicalizing people, the media that's owned by these people. The schools aren't teaching kids what they need to learn. They're trying to teach them how to be Marxist activists. And small businesses are closing everywhere because the people who pushed the lockdowns, pushed the vaccines, and pushed all this stuff, they're all owned by the same people, right? And it's owned by people that want to buy up everything that everyone owns. Okay? They're already buying up everything. Look at how much they own of everything. You think they don't want to just own it all for themselves? Look how greedy they are. They've already bought so much of these companies. They own so much already. You think they're going to stop? They're not going to stop until they own everything, or until people get informed and wake up, start thinking for themselves, and try to stop them. Because otherwise, what incentive do they have to stop? They have none. And our government, unfortunately, gave them free rein, in fact, helped them accomplish all of this. So that's the end of the episode. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you learned something today. More importantly, I hope that I inspired some of you to do your own research and to look into these things for yourself and make your own determinations, because that's how reason works. You know, reason, the way it works is you just got to ask yourself questions. What is this? Who owns this? You know, and then eventually your intuition will give you the answer that you're looking for. And just keep asking questions and keep looking for answers. Once again, thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.